They thought the old man upstairs was losing his mind, but what they didn't know was that he'd been quietly planning their downfall for months. When Christmas Day came, so did his revenge, and no one at that table was ready for what he revealed. They thought I was asleep upstairs. I wasn't. I was standing in the hallway listening to my daughter-in-law, Jessica, plan my disposal like I was yesterday's garbage. Her voice carried clearly from the kitchen below. "We'll kick him out right after Christmas," she whispered to my son, David. Northridge. Assisted living has an opening January the 2nd, $2,400 a month. But we'll have his house money by then? David mumbled something I couldn't catch. Jessica's response was crystal clear. He's too senile to fight it. Besides, we deserve this after putting up with him for 6 months. I should have felt devastated, betrayed. Instead, I smiled. You see, they had no idea what I'd been planning for months. Hit subscribe if you believe respect should be earned, not demanded. Let me take you back to where this all started. Months ago, when my wife, Ellen, passed away. Ellen and I had been married 43 years. She died on a Tuesday morning in June, holding my hand in room 217 at Hartford General. The cancer took her in 8 weeks. I was lost. David suggested I move in temporarily, just until you get back on your feet. Dad, Jessica's smile was tight, but she nodded along. They had the space at 4-bedroom Colonial in West Hartford that I'd been secretly helping them afford for 2 years. The problem started immediately. Harold, "You left the coffee pot on again," Jessica would announce loudly whenever we had visitors. I hadn't. I'd been drinking tea for 30 years because coffee upset my stomach, but the neighbors heard her concern about my forgetfulness. At the Millbrook Country Club, she'd cut me off mid-sentence. "Oh, Harold's having one of his confused days," she'd tell friends, laughing like it was charming. The humiliation burned, but I stayed quiet for David's sake. She documented everything on social media. I found her Facebook posts later. Caring for elderly parents is so challenging. When they start losing their independence, it breaks your heart. Elder care family first, make her blessed. The comments poured in. "You're such a saint. Jessica, it's so hard when they become a burden. Have you considered professional care?" Jessica loved every sympathy-soaked word. Meanwhile, David avoided eye contact. My own son, the boy I'd taught to throw a baseball and change a tire, couldn't look at me during dinner. When I tried to tell stories about his childhood, he'd check his phone. When I offered to help with yard work, he'd mumble something about insurance liability. They were erasing me while I lived under their roof. But here's what they didn't know. Every Tuesday at 10 a.m., I drove my 1987 Buick LeSabre to downtown Hartford. Not to the senior center like I told them, to the law offices of Carter Patterson and Associates. Benjamin E. Carter had been handling my affairs since Ellen's. Diagnosis: a sharp man in his 50s who understood the importance of discreet wealth management. He knew exactly how much I was worth, and more importantly, how to keep that information private. "Harold," he'd said during our first meeting after Ellen's funeral, "your portfolio has grown substantially since we restructured it in 2020. The electronics business sale, combined with your investments, puts your net worth at approximately $3.2 million. I nodded. Ellen and I had lived modestly by choice. She preferred her Honda Civic to luxury cars. I wore the same Timex watch I'd bought in 1995, donated quietly to the Children's Hospital where Ellen had volunteered every Thursday for 15 years. My family believes I'm nearly broke. I told Carter. They assume the house is mortgaged and I'm living on Social Security. Shall we correct that assumption? Not yet, I'd said. Let's see what they do with it. Carter understood immediately. He'd seen enough family inheritance disputes to recognize the signs. We'll keep everything in the offshore. Accounts. Clean paper trail when you need it. Over the following months, I paid David's mortgage quietly, $860 monthly, Jessica's BMW lease, $430. Her country club membership, $200 monthly, David's business loan payments, $600 weekly. They thought their lifestyle came from David's middle management salary at an insurance company, $58,000 annually before taxes. The math didn't work, but they never questioned their good fortune. Jessica's spending accelerated. $3,400. Louis Vuitton purse for her birthday. Weekly. Spa treatments at $200 per session. Designer workout clothes she wore to the gym twice before. Buying new ones. I watched it all. Documented. It all. Every receipt. Every credit card statement that came to the house. Every casual mention of prices. Carter's assistant compiled everything into a detailed financial report. Harold Carter said during one October meeting, "You've subsidized their lifestyle to the tune of $127,000 since Ellen's death. Are you comfortable with this arrangement continuing?" I looked out at his office window at the Hartford skyline. The leaves were changing colors, same as they had every autumn for the 68 years I'd lived in Connecticut. "Benjamin," I said, "have you ever watched someone dig their own grave?" He smiled knowingly. I've represented several clients who've had that experience. How deep should I let them go? That depends on how permanent you want the lesson to be. That's when I knew this wasn't about money anymore. This was about dignity. Ellen's dignity. My dignity, the values we'd spent 4 decades building together. The phone call that changed everything came 3 days later, November 28th, 2:47 p.m. I was sitting in my chair reading when Jessica's phone rang in the kitchen. She answered with her fake, sweet voice. The one she used for people she wanted to impress? Oh, hi Karen, how are the wedding plans coming? I should mention I'd been recording conversations for 3 weeks. Not legally admissible in Connecticut without consent, but Benjamin Carter had explained something interesting. Recordings could be used to refresh one's memory when providing testimony, and they were excellent for demonstrating patterns of behavior to family court judges. My iPhone 14 Pro was tucked behind a cookbook on the kitchen counter. Recording everything, the venue looks amazing. Jessica continued, yes, we're still planning to attend. Though, honestly, I'm not sure we can bring Harold. He's been having more episodes. Lately, episodes. I'd never had a medical episode in my life. My last physical with Dr. Sarah Martinez had been perfect blood pressure 120 over aid to cholesterol levels better than most. 50-year-olds cognitive. Function test scored 30 out of 30. Actually, Karen, I'm glad you called. I need to vent about something. Here it comes. I thought Harold's becoming impossible to manage. David won't admit it, but the man is costing us a fortune. The utility bills alone have doubled since he moved in, and he leaves lights on everywhere, runs the heat constantly. Yesterday, I found him standing in the kitchen at 3 a.m. just staring at the refrigerator. I'd gotten up for water once in 6 months. The worst part is how he interferes with our routine. David and I can't have a normal conversation without Harold shuffling in with some story about the old days. It's like having a child who never learned boundaries. My hands clenched involuntarily. Ellen used to say I had the best stories of anyone she knew. For years of marriage, military service in Korea, building a business from nothing, stories that mattered. Honestly, Karen, he's become dead weight. Just this morning, he asked if he could help with Christmas dinner preparations. I had to explain very patiently that modern cooking is too complicated for someone his age. He looked so hurt, but what was I supposed to do? Let him burn the house down? I'd offered to make my famous stuffing. Ellen's recipe that had been requested at every family gathering for 2 decades. The money situation's the real problem, although David's too loyal to admit it. But Harold's bleeding dry. His medications alone cost $400 monthly. The extra food, higher heating bills, car insurance for that ancient Buick. It adds up. Fast medications cost $40 monthly. Generic blood pressure. Pills. Everything else she mentioned was fabricated. We've been researching assisted living. Facilities. There's a nice place called Northridge that specializes in memory. Care $2,400 monthly, but they handle everything. Meals, medical supervision, activities. Harold would be much happier there with people his own age. Memory care, she'd said. For a man who'd balanced his own checkbook for 50 years and could recite the batting averages of every Boston Red Sox player since 1978. The timing works perfectly, too. We're planning to have the conversation right after Christmas, give him the holidays with family, then transition him in January. Northridge has an opening. January 2nd. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Between you and me, Karen, I think David's finally ready to admit his father needs professional care. Yesterday, Harold couldn't remember where. He put his reading glasses. They were on his head the whole time. I touched the reading glasses, hanging from the chain around my neck, same spot they'd been for 15 years. The inheritance situation should help with costs. David's been handling Harold's finances since Ellen died, and there's enough equity in this house to cover several years of care. Harold's too senile to understand the paperwork anyway. He just signs whatever David puts in front of him. I'd never signed a single financial document for David. Every bank account, every investment, every asset remained under my exclusive control. I know it sounds harsh, but honestly, Harold's had his time. David and I have our whole lives ahead of us. And we can't spend the next decade being unpaid caregivers. We have our own dreams, our own plans, dreams, funded entirely by my secret financial support. Anyway, Karen, I should go. Harold will be shuffling down for his afternoon tea soon, and he gets agitated if his routine is disrupted. Thanks for listening. Sometimes I just need to talk to someone who understands. The call ended. I sat in my chair for exactly 10 minutes, processing what I'd heard. Then I smiled. Not the sad smile of a defeated old man, but the quiet smile of someone who'd just watched his opponent reveal their entire strategy. I picked up my phone and called Benjamin Carter. Benjamin, it's Harold. Cancel our meeting next Tuesday. We need to meet today and bring the charity donation paperwork we discussed. All of it. Harold, is everything all right? Everything's perfect. What Jessica said next crossed a line I didn't know existed, and now it's time to show them exactly how senile this old man really is. Benjamin Carter's office smelled like leather and old money, heavy oak furniture, law books from floor to ceiling, the kind of place where million-dollar decisions happened over handshakes and single malt whiskey. I sat across from his mahogany desk at 4:30 that afternoon, my iPhone still containing Jessica's recorded confession. Harold Benjamin said, after listening to the entire conversation, "This changes our legal position significantly. Conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, false representation to financial institutions. I don't want to prosecute them." He raised an eyebrow. "And what do you want?" I'd been thinking about that question since Ellen's death. What did I want? Justice, revenge, peace? I want them to understand consequences. Benjamin leaned back in his chair. At 54, he'd inherited one of Hartford's most prestigious law firms and had seen every variation of family greed imaginable. "Tell me what you're thinking," Ellen volunteered at Hartford. Children's Hospital for 15 years, every Thursday, reading to kids with cancer. She always said those children taught her what real courage looked like. Go on, the hospital's building a new pediatric wing. They need funding. Benjamin's eyes sharpened. How much funding? All of it. The silence stretched between us. Outside his window, Hartford's downtown buzzed with afternoon traffic. Normal people heading home to normal families who didn't plot each other's destruction over Thanksgiving phone calls. "Harold, are you saying you want to donate your entire estate?" $3.2 million minus legal fees and my moving expenses. Every penny goes to the Children's Hospital, and your family receives nothing. Absolutely nothing. Benjamin opened his laptop and began typing. "This is legally complex, but entirely feasible. However, I need you to understand the ramifications. Your son and daughter-in-law will be financially devastated. Without your subsidies, they can't maintain their current lifestyle. They'll lose the house, the cars, possibly David's business loan defaults." Good. Harold Benjamin, my son, just spent 6 months watching his wife humiliate his father and said nothing. He allowed her to plan my institutionalization, to steal my inheritance. He stood by while she called me deadweight and too senile to understand paperwork. Stood up and walked to the window. Hartford. Children's Hospital was visible in the distance, a gleaming white building where Ellen had found her. Purpose? Ellen believed children deserved better than the world adults were giving them. She'd understand this decision. What about David? Despite everything, he's still your son. David made his choice when he chose Jessica's contempt over his father's dignity. Actions have consequences. It's time he learned that lesson. Benjamin pulled out a thick folder. "I'll need several signatures, and we'll have to move quickly. If you're serious about this, we should complete everything before Christmas." "How quickly?" "I can have the charity paperwork ready by tomorrow. The house sale is more complicated. We'll need a private buyer who can close fast and pay cash. You have someone in mind?" "St. Mary's Development Corporation. They buy properties for affordable housing projects. Good people, fast closers, and they pay fair market value. I made a decision that would destroy them financially. Set it up. I want the house sold by January 2nd. That's only 5 weeks, Harold. Are you certain?" I thought about Jessica's voice on that recording. Deadweight, too senile to fight it. We deserve this. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Benjamin began pulling documents from his filing. "Cabinet, we'll structure this carefully. First, we establish the charitable trust. Then, we transfer all assets to the trust. Finally, we arrange the house sale with occupancy ending January 2nd. What about my living situation?" Hartford has several excellent senior communities. I'd recommend Sunset Manor. It's 3 miles from the Children's Hospital, so you could volunteer there if you wanted. Ellen would like that, I thought. Full circle. "One more thing. Benjamin, I want this done publicly, not hidden, not quiet. I want the entire family to witness the donation ceremony." "Harold? That's unusual." "Christmas Day after dinner with everyone present." Benjamin smiled slowly. In 30 years of practice, he'd never handled a case quite like this. You want them to watch you give away their inheritance. I want them to understand that respect isn't inherited. It's earned every single day. We worked until 7 p.m. signing documents, transferring accounts, setting up trusts, $3.2 million redirected from greedy relatives to sick children. "Harold," Benjamin said as I prepared to leave, "are you prepared for their reaction? This will be devastating to them." I paused at his office door. "Benjamin, you know what's devastating? Spending your golden years watching your own family plan your disposal. After that, everything else is just paperwork." Christmas morning, I had one final surprise waiting. December 1st arrived gray and cold, typical New England winter weather. I woke up early, made my tea, and drove to Hartford First Bank. Time to test the waters. The bank manager, Mrs. Patricia Williams, had known me for 23 years. She'd handled Ellen's and my mortgage, business loans, investment accounts. When I walked into her office at 9 a.m., she smiled warmly. "Harold, how are you holding up, dear?" "Getting by, Patricia. I need to make some changes to my automatic payment arrangements." "Of course. What can I help you with?" I pulled out a handwritten list. I'd like to cancel the monthly transfers to David's mortgage account. Also, the Carly's payment for the BMW and the country club membership fee. Patricia's fingers paused over her keyboard. Harold, those are substantial payments. Are you sure about this? Completely sure. She pulled up the accounts on her screen. Let me see. Oh, mortgage. Payment is $860 monthly. BMW lease is $430. To country club is $1,200. That's nearly $2,500 in monthly support. I'm aware of the amounts. May I ask why you're canceling them? If there's a financial hardship, we might be able to restructure. No financial hardship. Patricia, I'm just tired of paying for people who don't appreciate it. She studied my face carefully. Patricia had seen enough family financial drama to recognize the signs. Harold, when would you like these changes to take effect? Immediately. That means David's December mortgage payment will bounce when it autodrafts tomorrow. Are you prepared for that? I smiled. I'm counting on it. Patricia processed the cancellations without further questions. Years of banking relationship earned some discretion. Harold, if you don't mind me saying, you seem different today, more determined. Patricia, have you ever watched someone take your kindness for weakness? Unfortunately, yes. What did you do about it? She smiled knowingly. I stopped being kind to them. Exactly. Drove home to find Jessica in the kitchen planning her day. She was wearing workout clothes that cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. Lululemon leggings at $128 matching sports bra at $68. Designer sneakers at $240, all purchased with money she thought came from David's insurance salary. Morning. Harold. David left early for work. Some crisis at the office. No crisis yet, I thought. But there would be tomorrow when his mortgage payment bounced. Jessica, I've been thinking about Christmas dinner. Would you like me to make my stuffing? Ellen's recipe. Her laugh was dismissive. Oh, Harold, that's sweet, but I've already ordered everything from Williams-Sonoma. Much easier than cooking from scratch. Williams-Sonoma. Catering for 12 people at approximately $800 money. She assumed David earned. Of course, silly of me to suggest. It's not silly. Harold, it's just that modern entertaining requires professional presentation. Our friends expect a certain standard. Her friends, people who worked at marketing firms and law offices, drove German cars, vacationed in the Hamptons, people who wouldn't associate with the family of a middle management insurance adjuster if they knew David's real income level. I understand completely. That afternoon, David called in a panic. Dad, I just got a call from the bank. They say my mortgage payment was rejected for insufficient funds. That's impossible. The automatic transfer from your account was supposed to cover it. Oh dear, I said, keeping my voice confused and elderly. I may have made a mistake at the bank this morning. You know how these computers confuse me. What kind of mistake? I was trying to check my balance and the nice lady asked about automatic payments. I might have told her to cancel something. My memory isn't what it used to be. Long pause. I could practically hear David's blood pressure rising. Dad, that automatic payment covers our mortgage. If it bounces, we'll get hit with fees and it'll affect our credit score. I'm so sorry, son. Can you fix it? I'll figure something out. Don't worry about it. But I could hear the worry in his voice. $25 to an unexpected monthly. Expenses would devastate their budget. David's actual salary couldn't cover it. That evening, Jessica was uncharacteristically quiet during dinner. No cheerful chatter about her day. No plans for tomorrow's activities. David looked stressed, picking at his food. Harold, Jessica said finally, David mentioned you had some confusion at the bank today. Did I? My memory's been foggy lately. You canceled some automatic payments by accident? I adopted my most befuddled expression. Oh my, that sounds like something I'd do. These old brains aren't very reliable. David shot Jessica a warning look, but she ignored it. The thing is, Harold, some of those payments are important for the house, the cars, adult responsibilities that need to stay current. Adult responsibilities, of course. Should I go back to the bank tomorrow? I think that would be best. Maybe David should drive you, help you sort things out. David shifted uncomfortably. Dad, maybe it would be easier if you just gave me power of attorney over your accounts. Then these mistakes wouldn't happen. There it was, the real agenda. Jessica's pressure campaign was accelerating ahead of schedule. Power of attorney? That sounds very official. It's just paperwork, Dad. I'd handle all the banking so you don't have to worry about it. I pretended to consider this seriously. Let me think about it, son. It's a big decision. Of course. No pressure. After dinner, I overheard them whispering in the kitchen. He's getting worse, Jessica hissed. Did you see how confused he was about the bank? This is exactly what I mean about him being too senile to manage money. Maybe we should move faster on the nursing home plan. Definitely. I'll call Northridge tomorrow, see if they can take him before January. I smiled in the darkness of my room. Let them accelerate their timeline. Benjamin Carter was 3 steps ahead of them, and every move they made was digging their hole deeper. Is Harold losing his mind or playing chess? That question would be answered soon enough. December 15th, the Millbrook Country Club's annual Christmas party. I had been a member for 12 years, back when I could afford the $1,200 monthly dues. Now Jessica paid them with money she thought belonged to David, strutting around like the Queen of Connecticut society. The party was elegant, as always. White tablecloths, crystal champagne flutes, a string quartet playing classical arrangements of Christmas carols, the kind of event where Hartford's upper middle class gathered to see and be seen. Jessica wore a new dress, a black cocktail number that probably cost $600, paired with the Cartier watch she'd bought herself as an early Christmas gift. $8,500 of David's money on her wrist. I wore my best suit, the navy blue one Ellen had bought me for our 40th anniversary, tailored in 1998, still fit perfectly. Harold. Margaret Wilson approached our table with genuine warmth. Margaret and her husband. Frank lived 3 houses down, good people who'd brought casseroles after Ellen's funeral and checked on me regularly. Margaret, you look lovely tonight. Thank you, dear. How are you adjusting to living with David and Jessica? Before I could answer, Jessica materialized beside us like a well-dressed storm cloud. Oh, Margaret, it's been challenging but rewarding. Harold's been having some difficulties lately, haven't you, Harold? Margaret's eyebrows rose slightly. Difficulties? Memory issues, mostly. Just yesterday, he got confused at the bank and canceled important payments by accident. We're looking into professional care options. I watched Margaret's face change. She knew me well enough to recognize that my mind was sharp as ever. Professional care? Harold, you seem perfectly fine to me. Jessica's smile tightened. Well, early-stage dementia can be deceiving. The person seems normal in social situations, but day-to-day functioning becomes problematic. I see. This was my moment. Time to plant seeds. Margaret, I said calmly, how long have you known me? Oh, 15 years at least, since you and Ellen moved to the neighborhood. In those 15 years, have I ever seemed confused or forgetful to you? Margaret considered this carefully. Never. If anything, you have the sharpest memory of anyone I know. You remember everyone's birthdays, anniversary dates, children's names. Last month, you helped Frank fix his lawnmower and knew exactly which part to order. Jessica's jaw tightened. Like I said, early-stage symptoms can be intermittent. Jessica, I interrupted gently, could you refresh my memory about my military service? She blinked. What? My military service? Since my memory is failing, perhaps you could tell Margaret about my time in Korea. Jessica's face went blank after 6 months of living in my house. She never bothered to learn basic facts about my life. Harold served in Korea, she said vaguely. Which unit? Silence. Which years? More silence. What rank did I achieve? Jessica looked trapped. Margaret watched this exchange with growing interest. Margaret, I said, I served with the 2nd Infantry Division from 1951 to 1953. I was a staff sergeant, earned a Purple Heart at Heartbreak Ridge, and came home to use the GI Bill for electrical engineering degree at UConn. I remember Ellen mentioning that, Margaret said. She was so proud of your service. I received that Purple Heart for carrying 2 wounded soldiers to safety under enemy fire. Does that sound like the behavior of someone with a failing mind? Margaret's eyes narrowed as she looked at Jessica. No, Harold. It sounds like the behavior of someone with exceptional courage and mental clarity. Jessica's face flushed red. I need to find David, she muttered and stalked away. Margaret moved closer. Harold, is everything all right at home? I smiled sadly. Margaret, family relationships can be complicated, but don't worry about me. I'm taking care of myself. If you need anything, thank you. That means more than you know. Margaret squeezed my hand. Ellen raised a good son in David, but sometimes good people make poor choices. Will Harold crack under pressure? Not tonight. Tonight, he was building an army of witnesses. Jessica's social media campaign began the next morning. I discovered it accidentally. Tuesday, December 16th. I was using David's laptop to check my email when a Facebook notification popped up. Jessica had tagged him in a post. The hardest part about caring for aging parents is knowing when they need more help than family can provide. Harold has been having increasing memory lapses and confusion episodes. Yesterday at a social event, he became defensive when I tried to explain his condition to a friend. It's heartbreaking to watch someone you love struggle with cognitive decline. Prayers appreciated as we navigate this difficult transition. Elder care triber, Alzheimer's, Henna family struggle. The post had 63 likes and 47 comments within 12 hours. So sorry you're going through this. My mom went through the same thing. You're a saint for taking care of him, sending prayers. Have you looked into memory care facilities? My dad thrived in professional care. It's so hard when they don't recognize they need help. Stay strong. Each comment twisted the knife deeper into her fabricated narrative. I screenshotted everything and emailed it to Benjamin Carter, but Jessica was just getting started. Over the next week, her Facebook became a daily documentary of my supposed decline. December 17th. Harold asked me 3 times today what day it was. The doctor says repetitive questions are a common early symptom. Grateful for David's patience during this difficult time. December 18th. Found Harold standing in the kitchen at 2 a.m. Couldn't remember why he was there. Sleep disruption is another red flag. Researching overnight care options. December 19th. Harold got aggressive when I suggested he shouldn't drive anymore. This is the hardest part when they out at people trying to help. Praying for wisdom. Each post was a masterpiece of manipulation. Jessica had studied elder abuse tactics like a doctoral thesis. The comments poured in with advice, sympathy, and validation for her sacrifice, and she was building a public record of my incompetence, laying groundwork for legal guardianship proceedings. I called Benjamin Carter. Harold, this is actually helpful for our case. She's documenting her deception in real time. How is this helpful? She's destroying my reputation. Because I've been busy, too. Dr. Sarah Martinez completed your comprehensive cognitive assessment yesterday. You scored perfect marks on every test memory, reasoning, spatial awareness, problem solving. Her report states, you have the mental acuity of someone 30 years younger. What about witnesses? Pastor Williams has agreed to document his interactions with you. Margaret Wilson provided a written statement about the country club incident. Frank Wilson says, you repaired his lawnmower last month, diagnosed a complex carburetor problem in 15 minutes. I felt a surge of gratitude for neighbors who'd actually paid attention. Benjamin, there's something else. I want to accelerate our timeline. How accelerated? Christmas Day. I want everything completed by Christmas Day. Harold, that's 9 days, the house sale alone. Can St. Mary's development close that fast if we reduce the price? Benjamin paused. Probably. They're motivated buyers with cash reserves. But why the rush? Because Jessica is planning to move me to Northridge before January. I heard her on the phone yesterday trying to expedite my admission. She can't force you into assisted living without legal guardianship. She's building a case for incompetency, social media documentation, witnesses to my confusion, medical concerns. In Connecticut, she only needs 2 physicians to declare mentally unfit. Do you have 2 physicians willing to do that? She will by Christmas. Money talks. Benjamin's voice hardened. Then we move faster. I'll call St. Mary's today, see if they can close by December 23rd. That gives us Christmas Eve to finalize the charity transfer. What about the donation ceremony? Christmas Day, after dinner, I'll bring all the paperwork, make it official with family witnesses. Perfect. That evening, Jessica cornered me in the living room. Harold, I scheduled a doctor's appointment for you tomorrow. Dr. Richardson, he specializes in geriatric medicine. Dr. Richardson, not Dr. Martinez, who'd known me for 15 years and had documented my perfect health. A new doctor who'd rely on Jessica's version of events. That's thoughtful. Jessica, is something wrong? Just routine follow-up. After Ellen's death, we want to make sure you're handling the stress well. Of course, David and I have been discussing your future. We think it might be time to consider assisted living. Not immediately, but soon. I appreciate your concern. Northridge has a beautiful facility. They specialize in memory care. Very gentle approach. You'd make friends with people your own age. It sounds lovely. Jessica smiled triumphantly. In her mind, she'd won. Confused old man accepting his fate gracefully, but the real shock was still coming. December 22nd. Benjamin Carter's office looked like a war room. Documents covered every surface bank statements, medical records, legal filings, printed social media posts. 6 months of investigation laid out in meticulous detail. Harold, Benjamin said, adjusting his glasses, let's review the evidence one final time before tomorrow's donation ceremony. He opened a thick binder labeled Davis Family Financial Analysis. Financial exploitation first category. You've provided $127,000 in secret support since June. Breakdown. Mortgage payments. $5,600 car lease. $25,800 country club membership. $36,000 miscellaneous expenses. $13,600. The numbers were staggering when compiled together. I'd funded their entire lifestyle for 6 months. His bullet. Jessica's personal expenditures during this period. Luxury handbags, $12,000, jewelry, $21,000, spa treatments, $8,400, designer clothing, $15,300, total $56,700 in non-essential purchases, all made while claiming I was a financial burden. Exactly. Category 2, defamation character assassination. We have screenshots of 43 Facebook posts containing false medical claims, forged quotes attributed to physicians, and fabricated incidents of confusion or aggression. Benjamin showed me printed posts I'd never seen. Jessica had been busier than I'd realized. She claimed Dr. Martinez diagnosed you with early-stage Alzheimer's. Dr. Martinez's actual report states, and I quote, patient demonstrates exceptional cognitive function, superior memory retention, and mental acuity, consistent with someone decades younger. What about the social media witnesses? We documented 162 comments from Jessica's friends supporting the narrative of your incompetence. However, we also have written statements from 12 community members who interact with you regularly. Neighbors, your barber, the pharmacist, Pastor Williams, all testifying to your complete mental clarity. Benjamin opened another folder, Category 3, Conspiracy and Elder Abuse. The recorded conversation from November 28th provides clear evidence of intent to defraud. Jessica explicitly states her plan to institutionalize you for financial gain, falsely claims you're too senile to understand paperwork, and discusses inheritance theft. Is the recording legally admissible in civil proceedings? Yes. Connecticut allows one-party consent for recordings when elder abuse is suspected. In the nursing home arrangements, Northridge confirmed Jessica made inquiries about involuntary commitment procedures. Is she asked specifically about expedited admissions for patients whose families claim incompetency? My hands clenched involuntarily. Even knowing what she was capable of, the systematic nature of her betrayal was breathtaking. Benjamin, I need to know something. Am I being vindictive? Is this revenge proportional to their behavior? He leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. Harold, in 30 years of practice, I've seen many inheritance disputes. Usually they involve greedy children fighting over a deceased parent's assets. This case is different. How? Jessica and David attempted to steal your inheritance while you were alive. They plan to institutionalize you based on fabricated medical evidence. They've spent 6 months psychologically abusing you in your own son's home. Benjamin pulled out a legal textbook and flipped to a marked page. Connecticut law defines elder abuse as willful infliction of physical or mental injury, unreasonable confinement, willful deprivation of services necessary for physical and mental health, or financial exploitation. Jessica has committed all 4 categories. What would be the legal consequences if we pursued criminal charges? Felony elder abuse carries 5 to 20 years imprisonment. Financial exploitation adds another 10 years. Conspiracy charges could extend that further, but we're not pursuing criminal charges. No, you're choosing restorative justice instead. The charity donation serves the greater good while removing their incentive for future abuse. Benjamin closed the evidence binders and looked directly at me. Harold, what you're doing tomorrow isn't revenge. It's justice. There's a difference. What's the difference? Revenge seeks to hurt people who've wronged you. Justice seeks to prevent them from wronging others. I thought about that distinction. By donating my estate to the Children's Hospital, I'm preventing David and Jessica from profiting from elder abuse. Exactly. And you're funding medical care for children who actually need help, not manipulative adults who want unearned wealth. What happens after tomorrow? David and Jessica will face immediate financial consequences. Without your secret support, they'll lose the house, cars, country club membership. David's business loan will default. They'll experience the same financial insecurity they tried to impose on you, and legally, you'll be protected by the charity trust structure. They can't contest a completed donation, and they have no legal claim to assets you own outright. Benjamin gathered the evidence files into his briefcase. Harold, tomorrow you'll have 12 family members witnessing the donation ceremony. Are you prepared for their reactions? I smiled grimly. Benjamin, I've been preparing for this moment since I overheard Jessica planning my disposal. What's Harold's smoking gun? They'll find out tomorrow. Christmas Day, 2024, 2:30 p. Hamptine 12 family members gathered around Ellen's dining room table for what they assumed would be my last Christmas in my own home. The irony was perfect. They were right, just not for the reasons they expected. David's sister Rachel had driven up from New York with her husband Tom and their twin boys. David's cousin Mark brought his wife, Susan, and teenage daughter Emily. Jessica's parents, Robert and Linda Miller, had flown in from Florida. Pastor William sat at the head of the table, a surprised guest I'd invited that morning. Jessica had outdone herself. William Sonoma catering for 12, complete with bone china, crystal glasses, and professional presentation. $800 of food purchased with money she thought belonged to David. She wore the Cartier watch prominently, making sure everyone noticed her Christmas jewelry. David looked stressed, but kept quiet, playing his usual role as passive observer. Harold, Jessica announced as we finished dessert. David and I have some exciting news to share with the family. Here it comes, I thought. We found Harold a wonderful new living situation. Northridge Assisted Living has an opening in their memory care unit, and we think Harold would be much happier there with professional supervision. Rachel nearly choked on her wine. Memory care? Dad seems fine to me. Oh, he covers it well in social situations, Jessica said smoothly. But day-to-day functioning has become challenging. Haven't you noticed how quiet he's been today? I'd been quiet because I was savoring the moment. The transition will happen next week, David added reluctantly. Northridge has excellent facilities and Dad will get the specialized care he needs. Pastor Williams frowned. Harold, do you feel you need specialized care? Pastor Williams, I said calmly. But before I answer that, I'd like to share something with the family. I stood up slowly, walked to the sideboard, and retrieved a large manila envelope Benjamin Carter had delivered that morning. Jessica, you mentioned I'm too senile to understand paperwork. Let me test that theory. I pulled out the first document. This is a comprehensive cognitive assessment from Dr. Sarah Martinez, dated December 20th. Would you like me to read the results? Jessica's face went pale. Harold, this isn't the time. Patient demonstrates exceptional cognitive function. I read aloud. Superior memory retention and mental acuity consistent with someone decades younger. No evidence of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any cognitive impairment. Patient scored 30 out of 30 on all standardized tests. Silence around the table. That's strange, Jessica. You told our Facebook friends that Dr. Martinez diagnosed me with early-stage Alzheimer's. Were you confused, or were you lying? There must be some mistake. I pulled out my iPhone and set it on the table. Let me refresh everyone's memory about your plans for my future. I pressed play. Jessica's voice filled the dining room crystal clear from the November 28th recording. We'll kick him out right after Christmas. Northridge. Assisted living has an opening January the 2nd. He's too senile to fight it. Besides, we deserve this after putting up with him for 6 months. Harold's becoming impossible to manage. He's costing us a fortune. He's become dead weight. We deserve this. The inheritance situation should help with costs. Harold's too senile to understand the paperwork anyway. The recording played for 3 excruciating minutes. Jessica's voice describing her systematic plan to steal my inheritance, institutionalize it, me against my will, and profit from fabricated medical claims. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Rachel stared at David in horror. You knew about this? David couldn't meet anyone's eyes. It's not what it sounds like. Really? I interrupted. Because it sounds like my son and daughter-in-law, plotting to commit elder abuse for financial gain. Pulled out another set of documents. Let's talk about finances, since Jessica mentioned I'm costing you a fortune. I spread bank statements. Across the table, David, could you explain to the family how you've been paying your mortgage on an insurance adjuster's salary? Dad, please. The answer is simple. I've been paying it $860 monthly for 6 months. Total $600 gasps around the table. Jessica's BMW lease. I paid that. 2, $130 monthly, your country club membership, but $200 monthly debt business loan payments, $600 weekly. I looked directly at Jessica's parents. Robert, Linda, your daughter has been living on my secret financial support while publicly claiming I was a burden. Total subsidies, $127,000. Linda Miller's face went white. Jessica, is this true? Jessica finally found her voice. Harold's confused about, I have bank records, I said calmly. Every payment documented, every canceled check, every electronic transfer. Would you like me to call the bank and confirm these amounts with a customer service representative? I pulled out my phone. Wells Fargo customer service is excellent on Christmas Day. That won't be necessary, Pastor Williams said grimly. Harold, please continue. I smiled at the pastor. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Since Jessica and David are so concerned about my financial management, I've made some important decisions about my estate. I pulled out the final documents. Yesterday, I completed legal arrangements for my entire inheritance. David leaned forward desperately. Dad, what kind of arrangements? I donated everything to Hartford Children's Hospital. Every penny, $3.2 million. The silence was profound. You could hear the grandfather. Clock ticking in the corner. The house, sold yesterday to St. Mary's Development Corporation, closing, was completed at 4 p.m. The new owners take possession in January. Second Jessica stood up so fast her chair fell. Over. You can't do that. That money belongs to the family? Which family, Jessica? The family that planned to steal my inheritance and dump me in a nursing home, or the family of sick children who actually need help. You're senile. You can't make legal decisions. I pulled out Dr. Martinez's report again. Cognitive assessment says otherwise. I'm completely competent to make financial decisions. And I made them. David's face was gray. Dad, without your support, we'll lose everything. The mortgage, the cars, my business loan. Good. It's time you learn to live within your means. I turned to address the entire table. Ellen volunteered at the Children's Hospital for 15 years. She always said, those brave kids deserve better than the world adults were giving them. Today, my inheritance will fund a new pediatric wing in Ellen's memory. Pastor Williams smiled broadly. Harold, that's a beautiful tribute to Ellen's legacy. Thank you. Pastor, the donation ceremony is scheduled for next week. The local media will cover this story, largest single donation in hospital history. Jessica sank back into her chair, realizing the full implications. Not only had she lost the inheritance, but her scheme would be public knowledge. Robert, Linda, I addressed Jessica's parents directly. Your daughter spent 6 months plotting elder abuse while living off the money she was trying to steal. I thought you should know the kind of person she's become. Robert Miller looked devastated. Jessica, how could you do this to Harold? He's lying. He's confused. This is exactly what I mean about his mental decline. Jessica, Pastor Williams said quietly. We all heard the recording. Your own voice describing the plan. I stood up and walked around the table, looking at each family member. David, you're my son, and I love you. But love doesn't mean enabling your wife's abuse or your own cowardice. You have 1 week to find new housing. Dad, please. Rachel, Tom, Mark, Susan, you've witnessed everything today. I hope you'll remember this when people ask why David and Jessica lost their inheritance. I turned to Pastor Williams. Pastor, would you be willing to speak at the hospital donation ceremony? I'd be honored, Harold. Finally, I looked at Jessica and David. Respect isn't inherited. It's earned every single day. Ellen taught me that. I forgot the lesson for 6 months, but I remember now. I walked toward the front door. Pausing to collect my coat, Benjamin Carter will handle all legal arrangements for your departure. I'll be staying at Sunset Manor near the hospital, where I plan to volunteer with sick children. Harold, Rachel called after me, where are you going? I smiled peacefully to visit Ellen's grave. I have good news to share with her. The look on their faces when I revealed the property sale was worth 6 months of humiliation. January 15th, 2025 on 3 weeks. Later, I stood in the pediatric wing of Hartford Children's Hospital, wearing my volunteer ID badge, reading, Good night, Moon, to 5-year-old Emma Rodriguez. She had leukemia, bright eyes despite the IV tubes, and the kind of courage that humbled grown men. Mr. Harold, she whispered, will you read it again? Of course, sweetheart. Through the window, I could see the construction crews breaking ground for the new Ellen Davis Memorial Pediatric Wing. $3.2 million of good work funded by Justice Served. My phone buzzed. A text from Pastor Williams. Saw the Hartford Current article about David and Jessica's foreclosure. Are you doing all right? The consequences had been swift and complete. Without my financial support, David couldn't maintain their lifestyle. The house went into foreclosure December 30th. Jessica's BMW was repossessed January 3rd. David's business loan defaulted, forcing him to close his small insurance office. They'd moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in East Hartford, the kind of place David would have called beneath. Us 6 months ago, Jessica's social media went quiet after the donation ceremony made local news. A hard-to-maintain influencer. Status from a rental apartment without luxury props, Margaret. Wilson had called yesterday with neighborhood gossip, Harold. The new family moving into your old house seems lovely. Young couple with twins. Very grateful for affordable housing. Much better energy than what was there before. I finished reading to Emma and walked to the hospital's main lobby where Ellen's memorial plaque hung prominently in memory of Ellen Davis, whose 15 years of volunteer service reminded us that healing happens one story at a time. My reflection caught in the lobby windows. I'm years old, living in a comfortable senior community, volunteering 4 days weekly, financially secure through careful planning. Not the senile burden Jessica had betrayed, but not the bitter victim either. David had called once, 2 days after moving out. Dad, I'm sorry about everything, I know. Son, is there any chance for forgiveness? Always for financial support. Never. He'd hung up without argument. Respect isn't demanded. It's earned and lost. I'd learned that lesson the hard way, but I'd learned it completely. Emma's laugh echoed from the pediatric wing, bright and hopeful. Ellen would have loved that sound. Some endings are really beginnings in disguise.